Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to express my gratitude to the media who are with us today. It was a dynamic and a very long day. However, it is a pleasure to attend such meeting, both as delegation, but also the media who represent our country here. The participation at the third EPC summit that took place here in Granada was an excellent opportunity for significant meetings, discussions on current matters related to the Euro integration process and to the security challenges, digitalization, the progress of Europe in line of building transparent societies, and all these in times of strong geopolitical turmoil on the European continent. As I mentioned in the beginning of the day, it is very important that at this summit of the EPC takes place one day before the informal EU Council that will be attended by all the leaders of the EU member states who are present here today, together with all other countries from Europe. And at this meeting, taking place tomorrow here in Granada, the leaders of the European Union will start discussing the priorities of the Union in the following years, and they will further discuss to prepare the strategic agenda of the EU for the forthcoming years. Following our discussions today, tomorrow they will talk on the enlargement as one of the strategic determinations of the European Union, as well as for the internal reform in line of that enlargement. That is for the reform that will enable the Union to function with 10 new member states that will exceed in the period ahead of us by 2030. Therefore, to us as a country, but also for the Western Balkan region, the European political community as a platform is of exceptional importance. Following the two summits, today here in Granada, we have an opportunity, the other countries that are part of the accession process, to join part of these talks today and through working tables, for round tables, and on bilateral meetings on the margins of the summit to talk together with the prime ministers of other countries. My attendance at the round table on the topic digital transition and artificial intelligence was an opportunity to talk about the benefits and the positive practices which through digitalization can be acquired by the countries, but mostly by the citizens in line of faster and more efficient services. This will influence the transparency, reducing the corruption, and this in essence means accelerated Euro integration process, but also better life. We also talked that with the increase of the digitalization, with the increase of the access to telecommunication services, and our country is a country that has one of the best telecommunication networks and one of the most developed telecommunication networks. Hand in hand with these challenges, we face challenges arising from the cybersecurity and protection of hybrid threats. And that is why we agreed that in the already established Center for Protection of Cyber Attacks, created by the European Union, this center will be expanded both in terms of processes, but also in terms of funds, and it will include the candidate countries. And thus, North Macedonia will be included in this center, thus enabling us better protection of our telecommunication network, of our telecommunication systems from the cyber attacks happening in the past, but also that pose danger that will happen again. Another important topic in this part was the social media management and the challenges imposed by the artificial intelligence. The European Union is already starting its work on concrete plans for introducing appropriate regulations that refer to securing regulation in this field, and also protection of the democratic societies from third-party influences who do not want to these democratic societies existing in the European Union and in the candidate countries. We as a government have strong will through digitalization to develop various digitalization tools for the public services, because the sooner they're implemented, the sooner our citizens, our companies will feel the benefits of it. We are already a country that has introduced artificial intelligence system in providing information and services and supporting investments through the ADA system, but also many other services have already been digitalized regarding construction, securing and issuance of documents for the citizens, and other fields of work and life in the country. During the summit, I had exceptionally important meetings with the Prime Minister of Ireland, Leo Varadkar, and the Prime Minister of the Netherlands, Mark Rutte, and also with the Prime Minister of Spain, Pedro Sanchez. At all these meetings, we discussed the dynamics of the screening process that North Macedonia has with the European Union, and that is doing quite excellent, regarding the decisions that we need to pass in our assembly and refer to the constitutional amendments, and of course continuation of the European integration of the country and opening of the clusters following the screening process. Of course, we have their support for these processes. We have the support of the countries and the prime ministers with whom I talk today. As key messages that I might underscore from the meetings I had today, from the multilateral meeting in the very beginning of the day and later at the meetings of the working groups and bilateral meetings, I can say that Europe succeeded in proving that only through joint work can we achieve the vision for peace, stability, and unity, of course, and prosperity of the European continent, no matter whether the countries are members of the European Union or are candidate countries that are soon to be members. Another message is that we are connected both geographically but also in terms of values and history on this continent, and that we share common values, that we must have joint security architecture so that the European continent can live in peace, freedom, and prosperity. Of course, Europe has always been one of the centers, the continent of innovations, continent of new processes that are developing throughout the world. Europe has great potential, and with joint work and cooperation, we can contribute more to developing the business and developing the standard of living on the European continent. And of course, the enlargement remains high on the agenda of the European Union. And that is why tomorrow there will be a concrete meeting of the leaders of the European Union at the informal meeting of the European Council. They will, as it was announced by the President of the European Council, Charles Michel, they will talk the internal reforms that the European Union should undertake in order to absorb new member states of the European Union, because it is not the same if the EU works with 27 member states compared to what would happen if it has 32, 33 member states and it's functioning. The media have already conveyed the message that there is a German-French proposal regarding one working material that will be the base for the tomorrow's meeting, but also for the official meeting of the European Council that will happen in December. I would not go into details regarding this document because it is a working document that is to be presented by those who created it. I've seen it, and this is material that has quite positive signals, but also positive provisions regarding the accession of the Western Balkan countries to the European Union. Also, I would like to extend my appreciation to the hosts for the excellent organization, for everything that was enabled to our delegation here in Granada. I would like to thank our ambassador to Spain, Mr. Ademi, to the advisor in my cabinet on foreign affairs, and the representatives of the media who joined us today. Should you have any questions, I am at your disposal. You mentioned the statement of Charles Michel he gave yesterday for several media. Do you expect Macedonia to be among the countries among the Western Balkan countries for which he said that he expects decisions for enlargement in the December meeting? Macedonia is a country leader regarding the accession to the EU, and if we look in the performances of our harmonization so far, we have more than 45% harmonization of our legislation to the acquis. And if we look from institutional aspect, most of our institutions have already been harmonized with the way of organization and functioning of the institutions of the European Union. Of course, North Macedonia is part of the countries that will be part of the enlargement of the European Union. We're a country that already is finalizing the bilateral screening. In terms of all chapters, we have the report on the first cluster, fundamentals, and we're working on the preparation of the roadmaps based on which the whole accession process will be conducted together with the opening of the chapters. And what remains is for us to meet our obligation, to fulfill our obligation undertaken in the negotiation framework together with all the EU member states, to undertake the required measures in our assembly referring to the European integration, and to make the needed amendments to the constitutions, and to immediately continue the opening of the clusters. I believe that by February, should we make the necessary decisions by the end of this year, not that we will only open the cluster, but we'll be able to complete 1 or 2 chapters from the cluster. Prime Minister, can you comment on the developments in Kosovo? There was a missed opportunity for a meeting between Serbia and Kosovo. They exchanged some messages. Is there a risk of destabilization in the region? And how will you comment on yesterday's statement of Minister Osmani that if it is proved that Serbia is somehow included in the attack of the north of Kosovo, then we should reinvestigate the Western Balkan? Yes. Here we had the leaders of the countries of Europe. So we had the president of Serbia with whom I had a talk. We had the president of Kosovo, Madam Osmani, with whom I also had a talk. Since we are neighboring countries, I also talked to Mr. Edi Rama and with most of the leaders. And I can say that peace and stability are the essence for any regional initiative that has the objective of economic prosperity, but also overcoming of the limitations and challenges between the countries. In our region, there are more than 70 regional initiatives, and their purpose is to overcome the limitations between the countries and to increase the cooperation between the economies, between the citizens in all areas. Since if there is no peace, there will be no open Balkan, there will be no Berlin process, and following the similar analogy, we will need to question other international organizations and initiatives that include many countries. Let us take, for example, the OSCE. We're a country presiding with the OSCE this year in the most difficult year for Europe. OSCE has Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine as members, and in the OSCE we have a country that has attacked another member country. And you can imagine what kind of challenges to preside with such organization, which at times functions in terms of blockages and paralysis. It requires a lot of skill for the organization to continue its activity. However, we are here to create, not to dissolve, not to destroy. And we would like to convey our message that Serbia and Kosovo should be in favor of peace, and they should do anything in their power to make the right moves, to take the right steps for safe future of their citizens, of their people, but also for stability of the whole region. We as a country are a very clear example that through active and open dialogue all open matters and disputes can be resolved both at home and with the neighbors. And they truly believe that this region can do more, can do better, and we are at disposal for all processes to share our experience, to provide our support, all with the purpose of securing stability in the region, which needs and has to be part of the European Union as soon as possible. The government's view, since Minister Osmani clarified today that he gave his view from the position of vice president of the political party, the view of the government remains unchanged. As a country, we have constructive role and we participate in all regional initiatives, including the Open Balkan, as long as these initiatives bring concrete benefits for the citizens, for the countries, for the economies, for the businesses of the countries that are part of these initiatives. Also, we are an active participant and repository for the signed agreements from the Berlin process, and we will always be part of initiatives that are not colliding with our strategic determinations for membership in organizations that bring the region to full-fledged membership in the EU. However, in order to have successful regional initiatives, we need to have peace, we need to have stability, and we need to have respect between all neighboring countries that are part of these initiatives. In 10 days, we will be in Tirana. Tirana this year hosts the Berlin process. And can you imagine what this meeting will look like? We'll have countries which among themselves have a problem in their basic communication. So that is why I say yes for integration, yes for cooperation, but no for conflicts. Once again, I would like to appeal from North Macedonia as a neighboring country to resolve the conflicts within the already signed agreements that the countries have between them with goodwill, and all with the purpose of achieving better future for the people in all the countries in our region. Regarding the domestic topics, Mickovski, the leader of VMRO, sent a message, a request to you to have one leaders meeting regarding the agreement of the timings for parliamentary elections, for presidential elections that will take place next year. How do you comment on his view? Will you organize this leaders meeting? First of all, I saw the statement of the president of VMRO DPMNE, and I would like to respond to the first part of his statement, where he mentioned authors from the field of psychotherapy. I think that the problems of North Macedonia are smaller and do not have psychotherapeutic nature, but they are problems of gastroenterology nature that are arising from the problems that VMRO DPMNE is causing in the Assembly for the integration of our citizens and our country in the European Union. When it comes to the elections and the electoral code and the monitoring of the elections, first, the parliamentary elections are defined in pursuant with the law, just as the presidential elections are defined pursuant to the law. Regarding the amendments to the electoral code, which is quite known to the president of VMRO DPMNE, the Ministry of Justice has a working group for amendments to the electoral code, and this working group is led by Mr. Novakovsky, an experienced expert in legal matters. This working group is attended by representatives of all political parties, except for a representative from VMRO DPMNE on their discretion. They chose that they were invited and they were offered the presidential spot. However, they declined this offer. This request of the President of VMRO-DPMN is yet another request for putting aside the institutions in the country, putting aside the assembly in the country, putting aside the procedures and laws, and agreeing on tables, but agreeing on something that is already regulated by law. We have clear definition on when presidential and parliamentary elections will take place. Regarding the monitoring missions, he should know that as soon as elections are proclaimed, no matter whether presidential or parliamentary, then the Ministry of Foreign Affairs sends a request to the OSCE auditor to send a long-term mission that will monitor the whole process of the elections. And with the start of the electoral campaign and the elections, we have on-field monitoring mission that will monitor the elections, and it will submit a report afterwards. So as soon as the elections are proclaimed, when the President of the Assembly will do so, then all these procedures will be implemented. When it comes to leaders' meeting, we've had leaders' meeting. We can have another one. All the leaders will take place because the decisions for elections are brought with consensus. But this matter has already been absolved because we have a more important process in the country. A process that is more important than the elections because no one speaks of early elections anymore. This is making the decisions for continuation of the Europe integration path of the country. So this offer is still valid. Even on Monday, we can schedule the session of the Assembly where the constitutional amendments will be passed. And on the same day, we'll schedule the elections and we'll go on elections. I speak of early parliamentary elections, of course. Also, we have another proposal on the table. That is to start the process of constitutional amendments and VMRO-DPMN to be part of the government as they requested and as they accepted on a press conference to prepare the elections. The screening process will be completed. The chapters of the first cluster will be opened. We'll close some of the chapters and then we'll have presidential and parliamentary elections. This, of course, would be an agreement regarding the most important matter that we have for our citizens and for our country. Everything else is a discussion on topics that are of importance only to someone who wants, without any political program, to come into power, to go on elections, because on the presidential elections, I repeat this, the candidate of the European coalition will be the winning candidate, and afterwards on the parliamentary elections, the European coalition will be led by the government, which by the next elections will bring the country to the European Union, and then our citizens will not have to go to foreign countries, but they will be able to work in their own country, which at that time will be a new member state with better salaries, with better standard of living, and so on and so forth. Today we had several bilateral meetings with Sanchez and Borrell. Also, what are your impressions? Is there interest for the French-German proposal that would introduce qualified majority regarding the EU accession? This is important because it is one of the arguments against the adoption of the constitutional amendments. Regarding what is in the working material, I said that I would not like to comment on it because it needs to be presented by those who prepared it, and we speak of a German-French working group. And of course, at the official meeting, they will, at the informal and the formal meeting in December, they will present this. There are countries that confirm this. However, we need to know that during our European integration path, we have undertaken certain obligations. The EU has undertaken certain obligations, and these are obligations that will need to be fulfilled, as they fulfill the obligation for inclusion of clear Macedonian language without any footnotes, as they undertook the obligation to have the first intergovernmental conference last year, signing the Frontex agreement into Macedonian language, approved by all the EU member states, and this happened, so we also need to deliver on our obligations and promises, and that is to put other peoples in our constitution, and thus to continue our European integration path. Everything else is deceiving the citizens, avoiding the reality, avoiding responsibility, and lack of courage. Thank you, everyone. And once again, I personally thank you for being here with our Macedonian delegation in Granada on this long but very successful day. Thank you.